With the coin spawner script attached to our game object, let's go ahead and get that open and start writing the code to spawn our coins. Let's go ahead and double click on it in the project window or in the inspector there. And we need to add some variables to the top. Before we do that, let's actually go ahead and highlight our update method here and backspace that out because we're not going to be making use of update in this particular script. Now we can click at the top at this open bracket underneath our class declaration, hit enter a couple times to give us some space. And at the top we want to write, we're going to declare a variable, and it's going to be a public variable, so we type public, and we're going to create a transform array. So a transform variable is actually just like that transform component that every game object has, and we see that at the top of every game object in our hierarchy. But a transform array is actually a collection of multiple transforms. So we're going to have a variable that has multiple transforms inside it, and that array is going to allow us to do that. We declare an array by adding these two square brackets at the end of our object name here. So it could be a float array, it could be a game object array. In this case, we want a transform array. And we're going to call this spawn locations. We're going to press enter after we add our semicolon at the end. We're going to create one more public variable, public game object coin prefab. And this is because we need to have a prefab object variable in order for our script to know what exactly to spawn at each of our spawn locations. Once we have all of those variables set up, we can go ahead and save our script. Again, it's Control or Command S or click on that floppy disk up there. And then in our inspector now with the coin spawner selected, you'll see your coin prefab variable and the field associated. And then you should see at spawn locations, you should just see spawn locations in this little arrow. If you click the drop down arrow, this size field will appear and it's set to 0 by default. So we can actually set the size of this array to whatever number of coins that we would like our coin spawner to spawn. So in this case, I'm going to choose 6. So that means that when we write our code to spawn our coins, we'll add 6, or it'll spawn at 6 different locations. An important thing to note too is that arrays actually start at the value 0 and then increase past that. So the first object in an array is actually at the 0 place, and then 1 is the second, 2 is the third, and so on. So you might have to shift the way you think about numbers a little bit backwards so that 0 is actually the first spot. We also need to add our silver coin prefab into this bottom field here. So let's go to our project panel, find that prefabs folder, and then our pickups folder. And then we'll have to select our coin spawner again, and we're going to drag and drop our coin silver prefab into that coin prefab field here. Now we can actually add the transforms as well that we would like to use for our spawn locations. So if we right click on coin spawner and hit create empty, it's going to create a new empty game object as a child of coin spawner. And that means two things. That means one, it's going to be organized so that we can click the little collapsing arrow to make it so we hide those objects, even though they're still there. But also it's going to mean that anywhere we move our coin spawner, these transforms are going to move with it. So let's rename this empty game object from game object to spawn location. And then we also want to click on this little box here next to where we named our object. We're going to click one of these colored circles. You could pick or click whatever you want. All these are little visual indicators as to where our empty game object is. Empty game objects are not visible by default, so we can't actually see them. But these little blue orbs allow us to see them only in our scene view. You'll find that when you press play and check this stuff, you won't actually see these little blue orbs. But if I get up nice and close to our spawn location, and it actually looks like mine decided to go way underground, so I'm going to select my coin spawner and use this movement gizmo with the W key to move it back up. So now you can see there's this little blue orb that tells me where this spawn location transform is. So I want to have 6 of these because on my coin spawner spawn locations array, I chose a size of 6. So I'm going to duplicate this spawn location game object 5 times. So with it selected in the hierarchy, I hold Control or Command on Mac and tap the D key 5 times. And you should see spawn location through spawn location and then in parentheses 5. Just like with our array, it actually starts on 0, so you can imagine a 0 next to our first spawn location, 1 is the second, and 5 is the sixth. Now on our coin spawner game object, we want to drag each of those in order into our elements here. So 3 goes to 3, 4 goes to 4, 5 goes to 5. And then we can spread these spawn locations, because they're all in the same spot, out a little bit throughout our world here. So one way we can do that quickly is to click on spawn location 1 here, hold the shift key and select spawn location 5 to select all of them. And then I can move all of them over at once. And then holding the Control or Command key, I can click spawn location 1 to deselect it and then move the remaining 4. The same thing with spawn location 2. I can move that over. And then the other 2 here, I actually want to move down. So I can deselect spawn location 3, whoops, and then move spawn location 4 and 5 down, and then deselect 4 and move spawn location 5 there. In fact, we'll move this one over a little bit more. There we go, that looks good. So now we've got all of these assigned, and in the next step, we'll actually write the code that'll handle spawning our coin prefab at each of these locations.